It's so funny, like, returning back to this sense of childlike creativity. You know, when I was a kid, I was so immersed in my art and creativity, as most children are. And I think it's because when you're a child, you have less expectations. But when I was a kid, I just remember looking at the world and being in so much awe by it. And I think I was like 10 or 11 or something. My parents gifted me this turquoise blue Nikon Coolpix digital camera, and I was obsessed with it. I would carry it around with me everywhere, and I would just take pictures of everything that I found important in. And I was taking photos of the flowers blooming in my front yard, or the rain falling, or the sun setting, or my bicycle, and I was just taking photos of all these things that I found so much beauty in. And I was finding so much beauty in the typical and in the mundane, you know, like these things are never going away. The flowers blooming in my front yard are still blooming, and the sun is still setting, the rain is still falling, and I still have that bicycle somewhere. But now I have found myself returning back to that sense of creativity for the beauty that I'm seeing in the world. You know, for so long I started to hold these expectations of myself because I thought that's what other people were wanting from me, was to create certain things because it fit this certain mold and this certain aesthetic or whatever. And I caught myself just losing this creative desire that I had as a child. And I actually didn't even catch myself losing it. I caught myself after it was already lost. And I started taking these photos instead of flowers and rainfall. I was taking photos of things that I thought the internet would like, or the people I was surrounding myself at the time would like. And I was taking photos of people, of things, of experiences that didn't really feel like mine, you know? And I felt like I was living my life through this camera lens, but it wasn't one that I was holding. It was one that other people were holding for me. But what's funny is, when I reflect on this, I can't ever think of a time where people were telling me to do specific things and perform in specific ways. I just set these standards for myself. And this performance that I put on, I had this audience in my head that was watching it, and they were just judging me and, you know, throwing tomatoes at me, and some were applauding, but they were all the way in the back. And then I started to just cut the fat and get rid of all of the things that just weren't aligning with me anymore, whether that be people or places or clothing or music. I was just getting rid of all of these things that were causing me to lose all the beauty that I was viewing, you know? Because I was no longer viewing beauty in the mundane. I was viewing beauty in what felt like nothing. And I created this void and this darkness, and it was really alluring, and it was inviting in a way. You know, it was kind of daunting, and it kind of felt like this siren was in the ocean and I was on a boat, and the siren was pulling me in and telling me, like, come here and come explore me. But it was scary because the ocean was so dark. I came to learn that once I created this void and created this sense of emptiness, I was able to then fill it with everything I wanted, you know? And what came with filling that void or creating that void was so much just loss and destruction and grief and pain and just morbidness. And I fell into this feeling of just what felt like depression, and I just felt so lost within myself because I did that to myself. I purposely removed everything to make myself feel this sense of loss, but I didn't know it until now, because when you get rid of all these things that you want to lose, you only leave room to all the things that you can find. And I started finding myself taking photos again and drawing and painting and singing and dancing and just letting out all of this, like, what felt like internal colors, and letting them out through different platforms and different mediums. And I was no longer performing for people, I was just performing for myself. But it didn't even feel like performance. It just felt like being. And I felt like I was holding that little turquoise camera again. But what's funny is now I've caught myself being both behind and in front of the camera. You know, I'm still finding beauty in things like rainfall and flowers and bicycles, but I'm also finding beauty in myself. And I'm putting the camera on myself, but I'm also putting the camera inside. And that's being shown through all that I'm creating. So it's really cool to sit back and reflect and think about these past 3 or so years, about all that I've created for myself, all that I've let go of, to only leave room to bring in more beauty and more joy and more pain and more grief. Because the thing is, the grief is never ending. It's always going to be there, but the love is always going to be there too. And that's what I'm coming to find the more I create. Because I'm learning that I'm creating now for myself and not for other people. And those people that were applauding in the back in my mind, they're still there. And they're still viewing and observing it. And it's cool. It's cool to have those people that support you and support your work and just support your soul. It's kind of like a warm hug. But at the end of the day, the hug that feels the warmest is the one that I'm giving to myself. And it's just something to give myself.